that time you called me out of darkness, I said yes to walk this narrow way. You gave me love, you gave me promise. Your word is true, I will obey. Even when the storm is loud, I will not let go. Even when they laugh at me, I will not let go. Even if I walk alone, I will not let go. Covenant is written deep, I will not let go. I will walk, I will stay. Yahuwah's command is my only way. No turning back, no breaking vow. I am his forever now. Loyal to the covenant. Yes, I am a remnant stand. Rain or fire, friend or foe, I will not let go.
Okay, so I was asked by Alexis, if I may, a deeply Hebraic question concerning this Thahal, Psalm 91, and I did commit to presenting on it, and I believe it is very important, very critical, because oftentimes persons quote this particular Thahal. Some will chant it, some open the scriptures to with this showing and put it on their beds, and some people, they hang it up in their cars, and some have different opinions, perceptions, belief systems surrounding how this Thahal functions. But we do not operate based on religiosity, superstition, if you may, personal opinions. We look at the scriptures through Hebraic lenses. So we want to look at what this Thahal is saying. And so I'm going to ask someone to read Thahal 91 for us.
And I will, Akuti.
Go ahead.
Tuda Akuti. Bear with me. I'm just turning to the page now. Will I be reading from the beginning to the end of the chapter?
Khan.
Tuda. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High, who abides under the shadow of Al Shaddai, he is saying of Yahuwah, my refuge and my stronghold, my Elohim in whom I trust. For he delivers you from the snare of a trapper, from the destructive pestilence. He covers you with his feathers, and under his wings you take refuge. His truth is a shield and armor. You are not afraid of the dread by night, of the arrow that flies by day, of the pestilence that walks in darkness, of destruction that ravages at midday. 1,000 fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it does not come near you. Only with your eyes you look on, and see the reward of the wicked. Because you have made Yahuwah, my refuge, the Most High, your dwelling place. No evil befalls you, and a plague does not come near your tent. For he commands his messengers concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. They bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You tread upon lion and cobra. Young lion and serpent you trample underfoot. Because he clings to me in love, therefore I deliver him. I exalt him, because he has known my name. When he calls on me, I answer him. I am with him in distress. I deliver him and esteem him. With long life I satisfy him and show him my deliverance. Yada Yahuwah.
Yada Yahuwah. Hallelujah. Toda Akuti for reading the Thahal. Now I'm going to be presenting on this Thahal in 3 parts, if you may. And the first part, covering from about verses 1 to 5 or 6 thereabout, really focuses on position before protection. Position before protection. And what you will find is I'm going to be spending a little more time on verse 1 than any other verse, because the entire chapter is hinged on or supported by, or the foundation of this chapter is verse 1. So I'm going to be spending a little more time on verse 1 than any other verse, because if we fully understand verse 1, then the rest of the chapter becomes clearer. As per usual, we invite persons to ensure they have notebook and writing instrument, so that, you know, there are things that may or may not be on the slide which may be said that you would possibly need to take notes. So we must understand what kind of Thahal or psalm this is. It is a covenant assurance Thahal. It is a Thahal that is structured around dwelling, which leads to trust, which leads to deliverance. It is written for those already inside covenant, not outsiders seeking some mystical or magical coverage. And we will recognize that verse 1 is deliberately constructed with 2 different verbs that gives depth to the chapter. And so collapsing them into one meaning without carefully analyzing them weakens the entire psalm or Thahal. So we get into verse 1, and what I have attempted to do is to place the Yahudith there as well. You will observe the paleo script, or the middle script, and for each verse, and we'll be going through verse by verse, line upon line, with what is happening in this Thahal. Bear with me. Oh, God. All right. So verse 1. Verse 1 reads, Yashab basathar aliyun batsal shadi yi thalunan. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High, who abides under the shadow of the Almighty. The verse begins with the verb yashab, which is one of the 2 verbs we're going to be zooming in on. Yashab means dwells. This verb does not mean visiting, hiding temporarily, or calling on when there is crisis. It means that you are remaining, you are settling, you are inhabiting as one's normal state. So you're living in a particular state or place. In Torah usage, Yashab is tied to land inheritance, covenant permanence, identity. So protection is tied to where you live spiritually and not where you visit emotionally. Protection is tied to where you live, not where you visit. It's not about emotionalism. To dwell means you accept the law and order of the space. So you submit to the rules, you submit to the order, you live within prescribed or stated or established boundaries, and you place yourself under the authority of the owner of this space. Dwelling means covenant location. So think of questions when you're thinking of yashab or dwelling. Think of questions such as where do you belong and where are you submitting to authority and boundaries? Where? So it's the where. So this Thahal does not begin with belief or trust or a prayer. It begins with placement. It begins with placement, dwelling. The second verb that cannot be collapsed into yashab is yathalunan. One who abides, lodges, remains overnight. So we're talking about dwells and abides. The root of yathalunan is lun, which means to lodge, to remain overnight, to tarry, to stay through darkness, to endure a cycle. So this verb is temporal and not spatial. It assumes danger exists, darkness or night comes, conditions will change, threats increase after the sun goes down. So when we look at both verbs, well, before we get there, to abide, expanding on abiding, is to remain without fleeing, to stay even when conditions worsen, to trust continuity rather than escape. And so in scripture, lun is often used when travelers stop for the night, when danger increases after dark, when one chooses not to retreat or to escape or to seek refuge elsewhere. So abiding means covenantal endurance. Covenantal endurance. So with one you are situated, with the other you endure. So it answers the question of, will you remain when fear is present? So while yashab or dwell, to dwell, establishes where you are, abiding, coming from the root lun, and you will see the word thalunan here, establishes whether you stay. So one speaks of where you live, the other speaks of whether you will stay when things get dark, when things get dangerous, when things are uncertain. So if we dwell, but we do not stay, you dwell, but you do not abide, that means you belong, Salika. There is some movement here. You belong, but you flee under pressure. You leave order when fear, uncertainty, turmoil, pressure arises. Protection therefore collapses because position is abandoned. On the other hand, if you abide but you don't dwell, means you're a visitor. So you only stop by or you only visit, such as those who only pull this psalm when they're in trouble. So you abide but you do not dwell. It means you remain temporarily. You're visiting a Kadash space, a sacred space, without submission to the authority of the space, to the boundaries of the space, to the instructions that govern the space. It means you lodge without covenantal authority. Thahal 91 declares that protection requires both rightful placement and sustained remaining. Observe that I keep mentioning boundaries, authority, instructions. What comes to mind when you hear of instructions? Anyone?
Torah.
Torah. Khan. What comes to mind when we hear of boundaries? Boundaries speak to what? Anyone remembers? When you think of who, what, when, where, why, how. Does anyone remember? These are the statutes. So commands, statutes, right, rulings. Remember the 3 segments of Torah. And so statutes speak to boundaries. Who, what, where, when, how, why. So it establishes or responds to those questions, establishes the boundaries. So if you are dwelling and you are abiding, it means you are permanently positioned and you will remain there. Right? So dwelling is linked, observe in the verse, dwelling is linked to the Most High, Aliyun. Abiding is linked to Shadi. Speaking of protection, sufficiency, containment, boundary. So when you dwell under authority. When you abide under covering. So you cannot abide under Shadi without first dwelling under authority. You can't expect to visit for protection and you don't live there. You don't dwell there. You are not submitted to the authority, boundaries, instructions of the space. The order matters. You first dwell and then you must remain, abide. So every promise that we will observe in the remaining parts of the chapter following verse 1, every promise that follows is covenantally locked behind verse 1. Thahal 91 is not about claiming safety. It's about remaining where safety already exists. So dwelling establishes where you live. Abiding determines whether you stay when night comes. And night, of course, we can think of darkness, uncertainty, pressure, turmoil, danger. Protection is not promised to visitors, people who only remember the Thahal when they're in trouble and they pull for it and chant it or shout it loud over their doors and whatever they do. Protection is promised to residents who conform to the instructions and boundaries of that place and who do not flee or run or try to escape or seek refuge elsewhere when there are unfavorable or undesirable or circumstances or pressure. Hope you're still with me. Then we looked at those two verbs, and it is very important that we understand those verbs. Then we get to the secret place, because now that we have distinguished dwelling and abiding, and we have established that when you dwell, you live, and you are submitted to the authority of the space. Basathar, which is in the secret place when translated, means a protected position in your life that Yahuwah himself provides for those who choose to live under his guidance and authority. So whilst it is not a physical structure, the secret place is not you ensuring that you're living in your heart or in your mind. This is positional in Yahuwah himself. He's the one who hides you. So it is called a secret place. And please forgive if you see any typographical errors as I'm seeing here. I was tired. But it is called a secret place because those who stay there are kept out of reach of harm that affects others. Doesn't mean trouble doesn't come. Trouble can still be present all around, but the one in the secret place, the one who is hidden in Yahuwah, is covered because they remain where Yahuwah has placed them. Not because they are lucky, not because they're special, not because they're repeating and chanting Psalm 91 for this form of protection. So Yahuwah hides you or covers you in times when there is trouble, when there is turmoil. He hides you and he covers you. So the harm that usually affects others cannot reach you. We see also the term shadow, batsal. Being in the shadow means submission. You cannot stand in the shadow unless you are close to the source. You have to be in close proximity to the source for you to be under a shadow. You must be aligned or correctly positioned. You can try to go near a particular place, but if you are not standing in the correct position, you will not necessarily be in the shadow. Think of standing near a building and it is sunny. If you stand where the sun is directly shining on the building, you will not be in the building's shadow, because you will be standing between the rays of the sun and the building. So it means you've taken upon yourself the role of protector, doing things yourself. But if you allow the building to shield you from the heat of the sun, then you will be standing in the shadow. So you must be correctly positioned or correctly aligned. Religious doctrines do not correctly align us. So even though we may be reading the same scripture, not everybody is correctly positioned. Yada Yahuwah. So you are not resisting authority and covering. So when you stand in the shadow, it must be that you are under authority. You're submitted to the authority and the covering of the source. You're not hiding from danger. You're aligning under a power that is greater, superior, bigger, stronger than yourself. And in this case, we're talking about, of course, the Most High, who is Almighty. Remember, the shadow of the Almighty speaks of the protection. Protection. When things get heated, you're standing in the shadow. So I draw this analogy of a house. Think of you going to live in someone's house or home, and this particular person would have ensured that the home is equipped with all that is necessary to protect all those that are in there. So it may be weaponized. It may have particular shields in case of a dust storm. It may have a heating system during a snowstorm. It may have strong hurricane protection in case of hurricanes. It has some shock resistant thing for earthquakes. It has protection against theft and anything you can think of that is dangerous. The owner of this property would have ensured that all those systems are in place. But he says, for me to ensure you and all who are with you, note that for when we get further down in the lesson, but for me to protect you and everyone who comes with you, you can't be in and out of my house. You can't come when you feel like. You can't just be visiting. I need you to live in the house. You have to live here. And if you live here, there are some rules here. There are some boundaries that you should not cross. Like, I don't want you going to touch buttons that you don't know anything about, because it means that you want to take control of what protects this house. So there are boundaries, there are instructions that you must follow. During particular times, you're expected to do particular things. And so the owner gives instructions surrounding how whomever lives in this house functions. And he makes it clear there are times when hurricanes come. There are times when we have wild dust storms, when mobs and gangs may come, when all sorts of uncertainty will come. Sometimes there are droughts. Sometimes, there is perceived violence outside. But if you remain in the house, you will be okay. It's equipped to protect you from all of that. But if you decide to leave when you see, so if you look through the window and you see things getting crazy outside, and you decide because the house is shaking a little bit, you're going to run out, I do not guarantee you any protection. But for as long as you are staying here and all who are with you, you are protected. Don't worry about it. Whoever is outside will not know you are here. This is like what they would call a strong room, or similar to a witness protection program where they put you somewhere that it is protected. Nobody can get to you. So being hidden in the secret place does not mean trouble or pressure or problems, storms, famine, pestilence, suffering, plagues will not come. It means you are protected when they come. So when everyone else around you is going crazy, when everyone else around you is so uncertain, confused, going through hard famine, going through extreme conditions, somehow in the midst of everyone else, in the midst of everyone at your workplace, in the midst of everyone in your community, in the midst of everyone, for whatever area you find yourself in life, you are covered somehow. Somehow you are shielded. Somehow you have uncommon shalom or peace, rest. Somehow you appear safe. You appear unbothered. Somehow there is something about you that is distinguished from everyone else around you. Simply because you dwell and you abide where? In the secret place of Yahuwah and under his shadow. So troubles come, everything that you can think of comes, but you are protected. So now that we have ensured the foundation is established, coming out of verse 1, we're able to proceed to the remaining verses. Bear in mind the analogy of this strongly protected property that you live in. It's not yours, but you're allowed to live there. You're protected there. You're fed there. All the food you need is there. Whatever you need is there. You're just required to live there, abide by the instructions and boundaries. And, you know, if you go against that, there are consequences, and protection and consequences in Torah would be the right rulings. And if you're just visiting, I cannot assure you that you will be okay, because visiting means you're going to leave. You're going to go again out there. I'm not going after you out there. I have prepared a place for you to be here. Right? So Yahuwah is the one who places them in the secret place. This particular individual who has committed to submitting to the authority of the Most High dwells and abides. So, or lives and remains. So we get to verse 2. And verse 2 says, Amar Yahuwah machasi uamatsudathi alahi abatachbu. And of course, the verse he's saying, or I will say, of Yahuwah, my refuge and my stronghold, my Eluah in whom I trust. Keywords coming out in this verse. Bear in mind, the person who is able to say, I will say, is the person who is already dwelling and abiding. Okay? So I will say. This is not some affirmation that you get up and do in the bakar or in the morning. You don't just get up and say a psalm, as we would say in Jamaica, say a psalm. No, this is not some positive affirmation. This is covenantal speech. This is from a place of relationship. This is confidence in the source of protection and dwelling. So in Abri thought, words declare loyalty. Speech establishes witness, something you have lived, something, it's not hearsay or a story or someone else's account. This is something you have experienced. So you're not trying to convince yourself of this. You are declaring who your sovereign is, because you know without any doubt. So I will say, or this individual is saying, who the sovereign is. Yahuwah. Who is Yahuwah? Machasi, my refuge. Now, a refuge is where someone runs instead of other options. So they're not searching around, but this is a shelter, a strong place, a place that, in essence, does not provide for alternative solutions. My refuge. So this implies rejecting every other form of security. So money does not secure you. Your status does not secure you. How loud you shout the psalm does not secure you. How religious you look does not secure you. Whether you cry and do it does not secure you if your lob is not in the place where it ought to be. So you reject other forms of security and abandon false shelters. That's a refuge. Matsudathi, my fortress. A fortress is military in its nature or its construct. It is military, it is strategic, it is defensive. So it is an armed place. It is a place of protection and defense. So it is not comfort language, this is wartime language, because the writer understands battles will come. War will rise against him, but he has a fortress. A fortress means there is also some sort of army in place, and we'll get to that. So he continues and says, Alai, my Alua, my mighty one. Possessive covenant language. That's relational. Not a generic mighty one, not some other mighty one out there, whether the ones that are nameless and with false titles or the ones with pagan nomenclatures. But speaking specifically of Yahuwah, the writer ensured that the name is, he says, I will say of Yahuwah, not something else or someone else. So this is relational allegiance. Who is your allegiance in? Where is your allegiance? Where does it lie? In man, in science, in your money, in superstition, in some person behind the pulpit? Where does your allegiance lie? The word batak is used. Abatak, I trust. Batak means I lean fully upon. I risk dependence. That is steadfast trust. Trust in Yehudith always includes risk. I am handing over my finances, my thoughts, my life, my family, my business, my friendships, my will. I'm surrendering all of that into the one I trust. One I trust is Yahuwah. It means I don't wait until things get rough to do it, because it is always there. Or all of these that I have concerning me are always in his hands. Then anything and anyone that wants to hurt me has to go past his hands to get to me. So I'm not visiting when things get rough. I'm always there. And all that concerns me are always with him. the owner of the space that I dwell and abide. Everything concerns me is in the house. Remember the analogy of the house is in this place. I've moved in. I live there. So everything concerning my finances, my savings, my children, my spouse, everything concerns me is there. So they are protected. I am putting everything in the care of the owner of this space. We get to verse 3. And verse 3, Ki hawa yatsilak mapach yakush madabar hauv. He delivers you from the snare of the trapper. Or some may see fowler. And from the destructive pestilence. Pach, of course, here is a snare. And a snare indicates there are some hidden traps out there. Hidden traps, hidden traps. These are not open, visible, oftentimes not very detectable traps. There are entities, there are people, there are systems, there are organized groups that are establishing traps out there. That are establishing traps out there. I don't think it's that battery. You have to turn that off. Salika. Think I switched. All right. That are establishing traps out there. Please indicate if you're still able to hear us. We just heard some battery signal. Are you able to hear me? Toda. So there are some hidden traps out there. There are traps at work. There are traps at school, at the community, in various online spaces. There are hidden traps. The snare could represent deceit. It could represent political maneuvering, social traps, institutional traps, but hidden traps. We are believing that Yahuwah is flying every hidden trap and delivering us from every hidden trap through Yahushua HaMashiach. So there are hidden traps, the snare, pach. And these traps have been established by Yahush, trappers, or fowler. So this is an intentional hunter. The person who or entity that establishes these traps are intentional. They are targeted. And it is possible they are targeting you. And so because you dwell and you abide in this place of safety, this secret place, they may not be able to tell that you know, but you are able to tell because they can't see you, but you can see them. Because Yahuwah reveals what's happening and delivers you out of it, gives you strategy, gives you chakmah, wisdom. You have da'at, knowledge concerning how to proceed. So you are delivered from every trap, from the secret place, because they don't know what's happening. They don't know and they can't experience because they are outside of covenant. So this is not confusion or turmoil. This is targeted opposition. Now, here's a term that, similar to other Yehudith words, has more than one contextual meanings. Some may have opposing meanings. We call them contronyms. Multiple meanings. So dabar in this particular context, in the modern Hebrew, you may see, I think, dever is what they say, for those who may recognize that word. So dabar in this context speaks to plague. And this is not speaking of some personal unfavorable situation. This is speaking of communal disaster. So this pestilence is far-reaching. Whatever this disaster is far-reaching, but Yahuwah delivers those who are dwelling and abiding from that. Then we get to Hauth, destruction. So the destructive pestilence or plague. This is violent collapse, calamity, ruin, by virtue of the Yehudith meaning. So this covers both private schemes against those who are dwelling and abiding, and public crisis. So when everyone is going through a crisis situation, Yahuwah delivers those who dwell and abide from these destructive situations. Verse 4, Ba'abaratu yasaklak u thachath kanapyu thachasa sana u sachara amatu. He covers you with his feathers, and under his wings you take refuge. His truth is a shield and armor. So we see here words used, feathers, wings, abara, kanap. So to be under his wings is to be accepted, to be guarded, to be claimed. Accepted, guarded, claimed. So he in essence shows ownership over you. Think of any bird that pulls their younglings in, saying, "These are mine. You don't come near them, or you're going to have me to deal with." So accepted, guarded, claimed. Then we have sana, a large shield. This describes a shield that is body length. So it's those, if you've seen particular armies with very long shields that cover from head to toe, that's sana. Salika, forgive the typographical error, that should not be tsanan. That N that appears just before the H should not be there. Typing a little too fast. So that's sana. So this is body length shield, not personal armor. So Yahuwah himself becomes the barrier. Remember the analogy of standing in the shadow of a building that is shielding you or blocking you from the heat of the rays of the sun. So Yahuwah himself becomes the barrier. Amathu, his trustworthiness, his truth. Amathu coming from amath, reliability, covenant truth, unbreakable consistency. So his trustworthiness, his truth, his reliability, his unbreakable consistency and steadfastness is great protection for us and armor for us, because it tells us that in him there is no deceit, there is no guile. We don't need to fear that at one point he will be this and another point, like some people who may claim to be great associations, friends, or family, who at one point will say they are there for you, and when things get really tumultuous or crazy, they either turn away from you or against you. That is not Yahuwah. His truth remains consistent. Truth needs no defense. It does not change face because of conditions. It remains constant. Protection flows from his trustworthiness, not our flawlessness. So it's not about us being perfect. It is not even about our power, what we can do. All that we are and or protection and being kept is because of him, because of his truth. We get to verse 5. I believe this is the final verse in this first section, speaking to position before protection. So he continues, the verses continue, the chapter continues. Mapachad Leila Machatz Yaup Yumam. So you are not afraid of the dread or the fear by Leila or night, or of the arrow that flies by day or by Yom. So fear is addressed after position is established, not before. The order matters. So you have to first dwell and abide. Then we can talk about the fact that you don't have to be afraid of anything. So it is the one who is dwelling and abiding who doesn't have to fear, not those who visit, not those who chant and shout and open it on their bed or over their doors. Those who dwell and abide. So night fear or dread is speaking of, and I believe I alluded to it earlier, unseen threats, uncertainties, danger that may be lurking in hidden places or dark situations. You don't have to fear those things. You don't have to fear those things. That's why you need to abide. You don't run away or escape or seek other forms of security when things get dread, as we would say in Jamaica, things get dread. When things get really terrible, really out of hand, really bad, it seems dark, it seems uncertain, the threats, you know the threats are there and the danger is there, and you know the adversaries are out there, but you may not necessarily be able to tell or to see where it's coming from. Yahuwah is saying, if you abide, then you don't need to fear. So you don't need to fear the unseen threats, and you don't need to fear the arrows by day either. In other words, the visible hostility. So even the things that you can see hostility towards you and those concerning you. Don't worry about it. The adversary would have placed agents all over the place, and you're seeing them. Don't worry about that which you can't see or that which is visible coming against you. This is not denial. It is trained confidence. So as we move into the second portion or segment of this presentation and chapter, we are reminded of what was covered for verse 1. So being hidden in that secret place. So it doesn't mean trouble, pressure, problems, storms, famine, pestilence, suffering, plagues, destruction will not come. It means we are protected when they show up. And we're remembering, of course, that this Thahal is addressing the one who dwells and abides. So for this segment, I call it distinction in the midst of right ruling. So first in the first section, we looked at, who remembers what was the theme of the first segment? You see those who are taking notes. Who remembers the theme of the first segment?
Nakuti, position before protection.
Yada Yahuwah, Khan. So position before protection. In this section, we're looking at distinction in the midst of right ruling. Call it distinction in the midst of right ruling. All right. So we're looking here at verse 6 to about verse 11. That's what this segment will cover. Verses 6 to 11. So verse 6 says, Madabar ba'apal yahalak makatab yashub saharim. Of the pestilence that walks in darkness, of destruction that ravages at midday. Now, this verse would have completed what we observed was being said in verse 5. So it completes that cycle which began in verse 5. We would have already started to talk about the word dabar in this context, which speaks of pestilence or plague. And this is not random illness. In this context, when we look at those which are reflecting similar instances in Torah and Nabim, it is covenantal consequence, it's national right ruling, it is corrective discipline. We see this appearing in the Shamut plagues, in the warnings of Yahu, in the right rulings that are outlined by Chazakal. So plague or pestilence is legal right ruling language. It's not simply some random sickness or random medical condition. These are these massive outbreaks that appear across species, territories, populations, people groups, etc. They are legal ruling language, or what some would call judicial language, if you may. So he says of the pestilence that walks in darkness, and of destruction that ravages. So he's still delivering. So even in the midst of a national crisis, there's an outbreak of some sort, he will deliver those who are dwelling and abiding in him. Ba'apal, ba, of course, being prefixed in, and apal, darkness. Ba'apal, darkness here would represent unseen or misunderstood or untraceable situations or conditions. So that which is unseen, misunderstood, untraceable. So this sort of danger, you can't predict it, you can't control it, you can't negotiate with it. And sometimes it comes unawares, but Yahuwah is aware of everything. And he knows all and sees all that happens even before it happens. And so he flies these traps. He will deliver those who are dwelling and abiding from those things which we can't control, we can't predict, we can't negotiate with. Maybe we misunderstand, maybe we can't trace, maybe we can't see. But he is in control of all things. He knows, he's able. We get to Yahalak, with speaking to walking, so walks. So it is personifying the plague or the pestilence. So this is sort of poetic. So in Abri thought, right, rulings or judgments, as some would know them, they walk. You may hear of curses pursuing. You may hear of barakim, or what some know as blessings, overtaking. So this indicates active movement. It's not a static threat. It's active movement. Active movement. The katab, speaking of destruction. And I in a previous presentation, I would have encouraged persons to try to obtain particular books. For example, the lexicons, the having the word just missed me. No, not speaking specifically to the name of a book. The word will come back. But those scriptures that allow you to see the actual Yahudith words for each of the words used in these verses. No, not those texts. The type of book, a type of scriptures. Maybe someone can remember. I can't remember. The word just slipped me. But I always encourage persons to obtain scriptures that allow you to see each word, what it means. What is the Yahudith word that is, it's usually below each of the words in the verses. There are different types of scriptures. I suppose the one written by author Green, author called P. Green, I believe, is easier to obtain, but I found it is not as extensive. I have shared links. I would have to go back to look for those links, but I have shared links to those that are online, which are a little bit more extensive in terms of the meaning of each of the words. But for those who may desire to know the meaning of words when you're reading scriptures, it's important to have these sort of scriptures that show you the words and what they mean. Behind this. All right. So katab, destruction. So this word implies cutting down, sudden devastation, annihilating force. So it is used poetically for particular occurrences such as famine, warfare, mass death. So Yahuwah is saying he will also deliver us in times of great famine, where it's cutting down millions, or sudden devastation, or devastation from warfare, or mass death of whatever sort. Yahuwah is saying he will deliver us. He will protect us. It doesn't mean it's not happening around us. It doesn't mean we're not seeing it happen. It doesn't mean we somehow disappear out of our clothes into the air while it is happening. It means that even though it is happening around us, it is not affecting us in the same way that it affects those who are outside of covenant. So Yashud ravages, so the destruction. So these devastating situations, annihilating situations that violently plunder, devastate, or openly ruin a particular space, he's saying this sort of destruction, once you are dwelling and abiding in me, in the secret place, under my shadow, you will be kept. Continuing with verse 6, Saharim. So medium or midday is when visibility is at its highest, and it is assumed you're safe because everything is exposed, everything is bright. It is also the time when things can get hottest. When you think about the greater light or the sun at this time, oftentimes this is also the time when things may appear calm and there's not much wind, there's not much hustle and bustle. But right rulings sometimes strike hardest or are most intense when people feel most secure, when they think they have clarity on everything, when they think they're at the safest place. Then there is sudden destruction. Sudden destruction. But Yahuwah is saying even in these situations, he will keep us as long as we are dwelling and abiding. Verse 7, Yapal matsadak alap u rababa ma yaminak alik la yagash. 1,000 fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it does not come near you. Yapal is the word that begins this verse when read in the Yahudith. will fall. So this is collapse and not retreat. So when it says 1,000 will fall or 1,000 fall, this is collapse. So those that are falling are not merely enemies, but participants in right ruling. So all that is involved with whatever devastation is happening, whatever attacks are happening, will fall, will collapse. Every system, every organized plot or attack or arrangement will fall. Now, numerical imagery is used here, and it's not literal arithmetic. You're talking about 1,000 represents the completeness in a group, and 10,000 means an overwhelming multitude. So 1,000 completeness, 10,000 overwhelming multitude, when you see it appearing throughout scripture Hebraically. So this signals the totality of impact. As I stated, not literal arithmetic. So it's not literal numbers, but totality of impact. So it is not some falling. It is complete falling of all those participating in whatever destruction, whatever system organized to come against those of the Most High who are dwelling and abiding. All those will collapse. All those will be completely removed. So totality of impact and not literal arithmetic. This is spatial language. So we're hearing left, right, left side, right side. So this is as though both areas of control, So wherever they think they can control you. Let me use a particular analogy. So when they want to control someone, they may grab their hands. Think about someone being arrested. Think about someone being captured. Think about a strong man being bound. So they come from both sides and they try to hold or capture. So you're talking about spatial language. So everyone who is around you tries on both sides. When you look to your left, when you look to your right, they're coming at you. He's saying, the scripture is saying that they will fall. They will fall. They will collapse. They will not come near you. They will not come near you. So this encloses the individual within turmoil. There is a lot happening around you, but it will not touch you. Right? Then we talk about the fourth line there of the third line of the transliteration, Alik la Yagash, which we said earlier, it will not approach you. Here's an important distinction. You may see all that is happening. You may hear all that is happening. You may feel the tremors, because sometimes it can feel as though things are not going the way you would have thought they should have been going. But it does not touch you. So you may see it, you may hear it, you may feel some shaking, but it does not touch you. This is Goshen principle. Goshen, most people may know Goshen, the place where the people of the Most High were preserved whilst they were in Natsarim or Egypt. when plagues and everything was happening, and famine and all of that was happening, but somehow the people of the Most High in Goshen were still flourishing. This is what, you would call the Goshen principle. So in the midst of all that is happening, the famine, the turmoil, the confusion, the storms, pulling and pushing and agents of the adversary coming up against, we'll see it, we'll hear it, we'll feel some tremors and some shaking happening around us, but it will not touch us as long as we are dwelling and abiding. Yada Yahuwah. So we get to verse 8. Rak ba'ainik tabit u shalamat rashaim tara'ah. Only with your eyes you look on and see the reward or the recompense of the wrong ones. Only with your eyes. Rak. Only. This restricts action. Our role is observation and discernment, not celebration and not participation. Let me repeat. Only with your eyes. You look on and see the reward. You don't get to be the one to bring, neither me, recompense. We are not the ones who are responsible for whatever will reach or whatever reward will be meted out to those who are wrong. We observe, we detect or discern. We don't celebrate, we don't participate. And I trust someone will write that down. Only with your eyes we look and see. And of course, the word here for reward or recompense, shalamat. This is measured repayment, not cruelty. So right ruling here is proportional. It is fair. It is deserved. Once that has been achieved, it stops. It's measured. It is proportional. It is fair. It is deserved. We also see here Rashaim, the wicked. This term describes those who are in defiant opposition to covenant order. It does not describe those who are struggling, who are ignorant, or who are repentant. So the wicked are those who are in defiant opposition to covenant order. When we see right ruling happening, it is supposed to be a sobering experience, a humbling experience. So it brings about sobriety and not pride. So we don't begin to puff our chests and say, because we are Yisrael, then, or because we're native born, or because we are a particular pigment of skin. Yeah, that's what they get. And it's supposed to be humbling, showing us that if it had not been for Yahuwah and his compassion towards us and choosing us, we could have been in that position too. Because there was a time when for each of us, we were rebelling against something. There was a time I rebelled against the thought of observing the Shabbat. And I would defend why you don't need to do it. Yahuwah could have done even more to me. If I had not given in to his tugging and his pulling and his awakening, showing me this is the right way to go. And each of us has our own, witness and account of what was done and where we have been. But seeing right ruling is meant to produce sobriety, not pride. Then we get to verse 9. Ki ata Yahuwah machasi aliyun shamath maunak. Because you have made Yahuwah my refuge, the Most High, your dwelling place. So notice what this does. It returns us to verse 1. Why is all of this possible? Because you have made Yahuwah your refuge. This is volitional. Nobody is being forced. You chose to make Yahuwah a dwelling place. You chose to dwell and abide. Because you have made Yahuwah my refuge, the Most High, your dwelling place. So, dwelling place, the word implies, again, similar to how we started out in verse 1. This is not visitation. This is not stopping by for a moment when things get rough and then take away yourself or leaving. This is settled habitation, long-term residence, living there, staying there. We don't visit Yahuwah, we live with him. In him we move and live and have our existence. Verse 10. Latauna alik ra'a unaga la ikarab ba'ahalak. No evil befalls you, and the plague does not come near your tent. This is one of those words that some would call the contra names that can also can mean neighbor or something friendly, but can also mean something that is an adversarial, or difficult, hard. So or evil, some sort of calamity. So this is not talking about discomfort, hardship, discipline. It refers to destructive calamity. Naga is speaking of great affliction, great plagues. It is used in Oikara for contagious affliction and defiling conditions. Contagious affliction, defiling conditions. So none of these things, contagious affliction, defiling conditions, calamities, destructive calamities, will come near your tent, your ahal. Ahal, the tent is not just your physical structures in your home, but it speaks of your household, your family, those who are under your covering as males and as parents. Notice I said males first. So it extends to your household, your family, those under your covering. So leadership responsibility is implied here. None of these things will befall your tent, your dwelling, your household, your family, all who are under your stewardship. That's why it's so important. And I dare say this. It is so important for our brothers to know their place, because when a household, a home, a family does not have correct covenant leadership, all sort of things can reach that tent. Affliction, calamity, defiling conditions. Think about how difficult homes without a booth, fathers, husbands, strong leaders who know their place. Think about homes that don't have those structures in place, that does not have correct order in place. All sort of things, because there is no clear covenant covering or covenant order. So in many respects, the adversary tries to get rid of covering, headship. So you find a booth leaving, fathers leaving. I love my sisters, but a mother can never be a father. Ever. Covenant, it doesn't make sense anyway, because without our brothers in their correct functions, the home or household or family is exposed to all sorts of things. So we all have a role to halal for our brothers, for the males in Israel, to be strong leaders, to take up their right roles, positions, to also dwell and abide. Because it cannot be that the children, the Yaladim, or the Ai, or the Asha, is dwelling and abiding, but the Aish is not. Or the Ab is not. The father or the husband is not. There is still a breach. All right? But we continue. So verse 11. Ki malakyu yitsua lak la shamarak bakal darakak. For he commands his messengers concerning you to guard you in all your ways. I dare say this verse is frequently abused because of the messenger's part, which some who may be listening to this recording when it is, uploaded, may know as the pagan term angels. They are really messengers. And a malak is really an agent or envoy, one sent with authority, messenger, not necessarily some winged beings you see in movies. The verse says he commands his messengers. So they are under authority. They do not act independently. They are ordered, they are limited, they are purposeful. And he gives them instructions. How many people in their own spaces can say, Yada Yahuwah, there's an army that has been instructed, commanded to guard me. So I don't need to worry. Yada Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah.
Yada Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
For there are more with us than those who are against us. Open his eyes that he may see. So we, Palalia Uame, open our eyes that we may see, even in times of uncertainty and times when we're feeling those tremors, that there are more with us. He commands his messengers, his envoy. He commands them. Remember, Yahuwah is our refuge, military defense. It's not no dibby-dibby, as we say in Jamaica, no dibby-dibby and pion-pion. It's not any flimsy, weak defense we're talking about. Though we may not see them, does not mean they are not there. So he commands them to guard us. But there is something else that needs to be clarified. I'll soon get to it. Thirdly, l'shamarak, to guard us. We talk about defense, protection. Doesn't mean they indulge in whatever we're doing. They are under instruction. This part is very important. Bakal da baraka, in all your ways. Now, your ways here is not speaking of reckless ways or our own, as in whatever we feel like doing. Your ways means ways that are aligned to the way. So as we are going along, these are talking about paths aligned with covenant, duties that we are assigned to. So as we are conducting that which we're instructed to, assign to, we're going in our ways. Ways don't mean our own thinking, our own reckless, misguided ways. I see a hand.
Hannah Kuti, I had a question. I don't know if this is a good time to present it.
Go ahead.
Judah, I was just going to ask about, as you're referring to in all your ways, what about, for example, as we, are learning things about the culture, the going back to the ancient path, in other words, but given that we don't know all of the things and are still, perhaps not doing everything exactly yet as it was because we're still learning. I apologize, Salika, if that's a obvious question, but I just wanted to clarify. Would that include that as well as being covered in that sense?
For the question, when it speaks of, remember in this case, it is the messengers who are commanded to guard you in all your ways. The ways here, once it is covenant aligned, once it speaks of you carrying out whatever assignments Yahuwah has given you, once you are being obedient. So what you're referring to, I am thinking, is speaking to the third bullet point, obedience-based movement, obedience-based seeking, obedience-based. So you're seeking out that which is aligned to covenant, so you live accordingly. That's what you're saying, right? Or la.
Partially, Akuti. What I was referring to is more so, for example, things about, such as this Thahal, for example, this that I was taught such a completely different perspective on the Hall 91, and have was putting such different practices into my life because of what I thought this Thahal was referencing. But now, so therefore all those years that I had a misunderstanding, would that mean that I wouldn't have been, say, covered all those years prior because I didn't know?
If you weren't living according to the commands, or you weren't part of covenant, you're talking before you became part of covenant.
That and also,
Christianity.
yes, in Christianity, and also, when I was first new to the walk, I was still implying some things in regards to this Thahal in my life, that because of what I was taught, what it meant and what I was taught on how to seek Yahuwah. So I was still implying that, again, given that I still had questions because I wasn't for sure, I wasn't completely, I guess, content with the explanation that I was given, because I felt that there was more to this Thahal. Hence why, I started asking you, Kutz, to break it down for me, so that I'm not implementing anything that is not scripturally correct or not pleasing to Yahuwah. So, even in the past couple years that we've been in the walk, would we have been covered in that if we were doing something that we didn't know was incorrect, or we had a misunderstanding based off of incorrect teaching?
Your covering would have come based on the heart's direction. The position of your motive, your heart at that time, would have been to do what is right. Khan? But you were not certain of what to do. We still are in that particular track where we're all, even though we may garner additional knowledge, we are still in that track. So being guarded in this instance, remember, is speaking of those who are dwelling and abiding. Whilst you're dwelling and abiding, you're still learning. So you're still guarded because your path is aligned with covenant. You're trying to find the paths. You're doing what you know, but you are still trying to determine whether this is what Yahuwah wants. That is obedience-based movement. So you are still covered and guarded. You're still covered and guarded. That is different from defiance to covenant. So that's different from those who are wicked. Do you remember that verse when we looked at? So in that, based on what you have accounted or spoken of, it wouldn't fall in the category of those who are wicked. It would fall within the lines of obedience-based movement, learning, and once learning, changing, moving in a direction where you're seeking out more of Yahuwah, seeking out, trying to understand whether what you're doing is to be or not. So you are guided and guarded. Did you get that?
Kuti. Yes, I did.
Baba Kasha. And this is why I asked if it was while you were in Christianity, because there are different contexts. There are those in Christianity who are defiant towards covenant instructions and covenant ways. That's the your ways, the covenant ways. They're not guarded. Protection is not promised to those who do not dwell and abide. It's just the raw truth. We can't fluff it. You know, like those who will go to a funeral and everyone who dies apparently is going to some sort of heaven. But no, that's not how it works. So in the case you have described, that is the response. It is obedience-based movement. So again, your ways here does not apply to reckless, self-willed actions. So if what you're doing aligns more to reckless, self-willed actions, then that way is not guarded. And this is why when we read in Mathatyahu 4, when Shaitan tried to use this verse, it was invalid because covenant context was removed from what he was saying. That was self-willed application. And this is why it is not simply persons lifting up a psalm and reading. Some persons would say, no man, just go and read a psalm. Read the psalm. And you're not living how the Most High wants you to live, but you're simply reading a psalm. Doesn't flow the same way. Okay. So we are now at the third part or third section of the third and final section of presenting this Thahal. The first section, what did we look at? What did we theme it? Anyone can state?
Position before protection.
Position before protection. Toda. Second section.
Distinction in the midst of right ruling.
Distinction in the midst of right ruling. Khan. So now we are at authority, not invulnerability. Authority and not invulnerability. So this final section, of course, will cover verses 12 to the end, verses 12 to 16. So verse 12 says, Al-Kapim yi shaunak pan thagap ba'aban ragalak. They bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Al-Kapim, upon hands, or in their hands. Hands symbolize, of course, when you look throughout scripture, Hebraically, delegated strength, functional support, service. So this is not simply passive carrying. It is preventative support once you're moving forward. So as we are pressing forward in Yahuwah, with our assignments, with our learning, with our living in his instructions or according to his instructions, we are supported by delegated strength, functional support. Yashaunak or Yishaunak, they will lift you up. Lift here, of course, obviously is not talking about literally lifting bodies, but lift here means to bear responsibility, to assist progression, to prevent collapse. So when Akuti asked the question earlier about if the guarding would apply, and I said you are guided and guarded. So here you see the guiding aspect. So you are being assisted with the progression as you are seeking to serve and align all that we do to Yahuwah's covenant order. They're supporting, they're guiding, they're assisting, preventing collapse. So this sort of support, based on what the text is saying, assumes we're already walking. So it's not as though we're simply living reckless, running to the psalm, and then this happens. This means we're already walking. So we've started our covenant walk, covenant living. And so we are supported in this way. It continues, pan, lest. This indicates prevention, caution, and foresight. So one would already recognize that without this guidance, without this support, without this level of assistance, there is the likelihood, strong likelihood, and in fact we will meet upon obstacles that we cannot overcome, that we cannot go around, that we cannot pass. And so that support is put in place to prevent that as a caution. And of course, Yahuwah is the one who commands it. Protection is anticipatory and not indulgent. So Yahuwah already knows what is going to happen if particular structures that he assigns are not put in place. He knows what's going to happen if we don't have careful and correct guidance as we are going along, as we are learning, as we are carrying out his assignments upon us. So they bear us up, lest we dash our foot against a stone, or strike our foot against a stone. So thagap, you strike or you dash, from nagap means to stumble or to strike accidentally. So this is not warfare injury. It is avoidable harm. So lest you strike accidentally or stumble against a stone, and of course we're going to look at a stone, a ban, which represents fixed obstacles, unavoidable realities, things not removed but navigated, so you can go around them, you can go over them. So we're not seeing here where the messengers remove the stones, but they help us so we're not destroyed by them. and they help us so we don't stumble because of them. So this part would also bring some level of greater clarity to the question posed earlier. So we are guided and guarded. We are assisted. But it doesn't mean that we won't have trouble around us. It doesn't mean that we won't find ourselves in places where there is turmoil and trouble and confusion and calamity. Just means we're kept in the midst of it. But let's continue. So, verse 13, Al-Shachal u-Patan Thadarak Taramas Kapir u-Thanin. You tread upon lion and cobra, young lion, serpent, you trample underfoot. So these are predators. When you think of these particular animals and their nature, it's predatory. So it's using, so the writer is using these particular animals as predatory imagery, characteristics of particular systems or adversarial conditions, or the adversary coming up against us. So shachal, mature lion, you're talking about open power, strong power. Kapir, young lion, developing threat. Pathan, of course, venomous serpent. So it's hidden danger, unseen toxic situations. Thanim, great serpent or dragon, a tumultuous force. So this covers the visible enemies, the hidden or subtle threats, the overwhelming opposition. It doesn't matter how subtle, how loud, how quiet, how deceptive, how forthright. Whatever the characteristic of the situation, the institution, the adversarial threats may be, Yahuwah causes us to tread upon them. So someone may be asking, what about treading on them, trampling? We see two words there, tadarak, tread, and trample, taramas. These verbs indicate authority, dominion, subjugation, not reckless attack, but controlled superiority. So it is not that we are immune to danger, but Yahuwah gives delegated authority over it. So it has no authority over us. Those conditions named before, the visible enemies, the subtle threats, the overwhelming opposition, they have no dominion over us. We have authority over them, delegated by Yahuwah. Verse 14, Ki bi chashak u palatahu ashagabahu ki yada shami. Because he cleaves to me in love. Therefore, I deliver him and position him or place him on high because he knows my name. I love this verse, but let's take it slowly. It is important to note that from verse 14 onwards, Yahuwah himself speaks in the chapter. And this is covenantal seal. So, Chasak, he clings to or loves deeply. This is not an emotion. It is attachment. It is usually used for covenant loyalty and an unbreakable bond. Because protection is relational and not transactional. You can't buy your way into it. You can't do so much that you earn it. It comes through relation. Remember, you are living, you are dwelling and abiding in the secret place of Yahuwah. You have a relationship with him. He protects. Remember when he brings us under his feathers, under his wings, acceptance, ownership, claiming us as his own. Remember, he becomes our shield. Protection is relational. We are submitted to his authority, to his instructions, to his boundaries or his statutes, his commands. We understand the consequences of not submitting to these, right? Rulings, or what some know as judgments. And so we align our lives accordingly. Remember, some people can stand close to the source but not be correctly positioned. And so you're not where the shadow falls. It means you are ahead of Yahuwah, not Yahuwah ahead of you. Religion can do that. Cause people to be ahead of rather than positioned correctly. Protection is relational, not transactional. But we continue. Uapalatahu. I will deliver him. Deliverance is active, intentional, and personal. I will deliver him. I will deliver him. Why am I delivering him? The answer has already been given. Because he cleaves to me. He has a relationship, a loyal, unbreakable bond with Yahuwah. But that's not all. Ashagabahu. I will position or set him on high. This speaks of elevation, security, inaccessibility to the adversaries. Why is Yahuwah doing this? Why is Yahuwah doing this? And this is what so many people miss. Kiyada Shami. Kiyada Shami. Kiyada Shami. Because he knows my name. I am positioning him on high. I'm elevating him. Greater levels of security, inaccessible to the adversaries, because he knows my name. So, knowing the name means not using pagan replacements. It means understanding Yahuwah's character, walking in his authority and his instructions, representing him rightly. So covenant identity plus function plus reputation was the name. So it's not even just being able to say the name. His name is his authority, his identity. Relational, not transactional. So for those who pull this Thahal and try to use it in times when there's difficulty or turmoil or some level of targeted opposition, do you know him? Do you know his name? Are you called by his name? Yada Shami. Yada Yahuwah. So we get to verse 15. Ikarani Ua Anahu Amu Anaki Batsara Achalatsahu Ua Kabadahu. When he calls on me, I answer him. I'm with him in distress. I deliver him and esteem or honor him. Calling is relational access and covenant right. Yahuwah says, I am with him in trouble and distress. I am with him in trouble, or you may see distress. This dismantles false teaching. It is not that, as I have been saying throughout the presentation, it is not that trouble is not there. It is not that problems don't exist. So we don't have trouble-free living. What this promises is presence in the midst of trouble. I'm with him in trouble or distress. Achalat sahu, I will rescue him. Rescue implies danger was real. Escape was needed. Danger exists. Escape is needed. Then he says, Uakabadu, I will honor him. Honor comes after endurance. Honor comes after loyalty. Honor comes after dwelling and abiding, not before. Must endure something. Even Yahusha says, he who endures to the end will be delivered. Endurance. Loyalty, meaning loyal to the covenant. Dwelling and abiding. Living, remaining. Then honor comes, not before. Deliverance comes after, not before. We have to dwell and abide. Those who endure will be delivered. We get finally to verse 16. Arak Yamim Ashabiyahu Uarahu Bishu Athi. So we get finally to verse 16. And it says, Arak Yamim Ashabiahu Uarahu Bishu Ati. Length of days, length of Yamim. This is not merely a biological age. It's speaking about covenant longevity, fulfilled purpose, completed assignment. So extended time to ensure assignments are complete, purpose is fulfilled. So it's not simply making age older. It's purpose-driven language. With long life, I'll satisfy him. Covenant longevity. Being able to teach generations and see them grow. I will satisfy him with this. Who will be satisfied? The one who dwells and abides. Speaking of completion, contentment, fullness. Completion, contentment, fullness. And Yashati, my salvation, my deliverance, coming from Yasha. Total rescue. Ultimate vindication. So the Thahal ends with Yahuwah's promise. It ends with Yahuwah's promise and not human declaration. I'll satisfy him with covenant longevity and show him my deliverance. Total rescue. Ultimate vindication. So when we observe this particular Thahal, it's not some chant or charm or some license for recklessness. It is covenant assurance. It is a Thahal of positioning, a declaration of authority under submission to Yahuwah's order, to his boundaries, to his instructions. Those who dwell are covered. Those who cling are delivered. Those who know his name are sustained. Those who dwell and abide are covered. Those who cling or cleave, relational, and endure are delivered. Those who know his name are sustained, are honored, are satisfied. Yada Yahuwah.